Thanks again. My name is Robin Lockett. I'm with Organized Florida, and thank you for attending our County Commission's race District 1. Thanks. I want to thank Harry Cohen for accepting our invitation, along with Jen McDonald. Our moderator for this section is Elton Laster, and I'm going to hand it over to him.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I'll take that as a yes. Okay. I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening to our Hillsborough County Commissioner District 1 Forum. At this time, I wanted to give the organizations that are participating in this event 1 minute to introduce themselves. We'll start with Rania with CARE.
Hi, everyone. Thanks to Organized Florida for putting on this candidate forum. My name is Rania. I'm the Programs and Outreach Director for CARE Florida, which is the Council on American Islamic Relations. And we represent Muslim Americans, and we protect all Floridians from discrimination and protect the civil rights and the civil liberties of all Floridians. So our goal is to be a leading advocate for mutual understanding and justice. And we're really excited to hear from our folks in the community who are looking to be our elected representatives and what, having a conversation and a dialogue. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Rania. Next, we have Pamela with Flick.
Good evening, everyone. So I am Pamela, and I'm the regional organizer with the Florida Immigrant Coalition. And we work for the equal and fair treatment of all people, including immigrants and refugees. We focus on building community power through organizing, but also through policy changes and holding accountability through the electoral cycle as well. So thank you so much for the candidates who are joining us. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Pamela. Next up, we have Nancy with Faith in Florida.
I'm sorry, who was the next one?
Nancy with Faith in Florida.
Okay, so Nancy.
Okay, we'll come back to Nancy if she shows up. Next, we have Tina with Project Link.
Tina's not here either.
And the other phone would be
What about Craig? Yet. What about Craig with Dream Defenders?
Hi, it's Craig with Tampa Dream Defenders. We are a pro-people power, anti-capitalist, abolitionist, pro-Black feminist organization that's fighting for freedom and justice and equality for all members of our Florida community. We're glad to be here tonight. We definitely hope that all the candidates would seek radical justice in their platforms in order to ensure equity for all. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Next, we have Evan Lawson.
Okay, Evan's not on here yet either. Go ahead.
Okay. Next, we have Nate Sweet with Florida Student Network.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nate, and I'm a fellow with the Florida Student Power Network. We are a statewide organization looking to create safe and sustainable communities and schools for our marginalized youth. We're really happy to be partnering on this forum, and we're looking forward to hearing from the candidates.
Thanks, Nate. Next, we have Jalen with the NAACP Youth Committee.
She's not on yet either.
Okay. Well, Robin, since you're here, go ahead and introduce Organized Florida.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robin Lockett. I'm the Regional Director of Organized Florida. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are a membership-based organization. We empower the community to be empowered, to make decisions and know how to fight for issues that's concerning to them. Our members are on and they will be joining just to see who speaks to their issues. So I'm excited to hear from the candidates. Thank you.
And Robin and Elton, if I could just jump in, quite a few folks, you'll see that you have just name if you joined via Zoom. So just go ahead and click participants, hover over your own name, and then you can click more and rename yourself so that we can, adequately address everyone who's on the Zoom call. Thanks.
Thank you, Rania. And next we have Dara with In Touch News.
Hey, this is Daryl Johnson with In Touch News. I just want to say thank you, Robin Lockett, for putting this together. We sincerely appreciate it. In Touch News is a media platform, print, radio, and social media, as well as digital advertising. And we just are glad to be a part of this political spectrum that you've pushed forward into our community and gotten the opportunity to bring candidates to our community through whatever means necessary. And this is just a great project to be a part of, Robin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. Again, as Robin mentioned earlier, my name is Elton Lassiter. I'm the political organizer for Organized Fraud. I'm going to be your moderator for the evening. But before we get started, I wanted to introduce our timekeeper, Nate Sweet, and he's going to go over the rules as far as how he's going to let you know when your time is running out.
Thanks again to everyone for coming. So the format is going to be 2 minutes for an opening statement. When responding to questions, you're going to get 90 seconds to respond, 1 minute for rebuttals, and then 1 minute for a closing statement. And at the end of each sort of speaking cycle, I will give a 30-second warning with this bell. Can y'all hear that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. All right, we're all set.
That's good, Nate. That's a good one.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate that. That sounded a lot better than my bell I had last week, but thank you. So we have two of the candidates that are running for County Commission District 1. We have Mr. Harry Cohen and Ms. Jen McDonald. Now I'm going to let them introduce themselves. You're going to get 2 minutes. We're going to start off with Jen McDonald.
Hi, everyone. I am Jen McDonald. I'm a local small business owner, entrepreneur, and risk management and insurance professional. I am a community leader. I'm past president of my neighborhood association, just wrapped up a term on the South Tampa Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. I am the chairwoman of the Business Advisory Committee at Hillsborough Community College, where we work to build strong entrepreneurs so that they can go out and build their dreams. And I am also the vice chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee of Hillsborough County, appointed by Mariella Smith. Back in 2018, I was frustrated, like many of us were in this community, about the decisions being made by our elected officials. So when the Democratic Party called, I listened carefully to why they thought that I had the right skills and expertise to take on this role. I carefully contemplated what it would mean to be elected and what this role entailed, and then I answered their call. Now more than ever, I know that this job is a job that I've been training for my whole life, given the ever-changing situation we are currently facing and the resolve it's going to take to get us through what I think is going to be a major economic downturn over the next 18 to 24 months. We need somebody who thinks around problems from many different angles, who's willing to listen to the input of our community partners, such as yourselves, and understand how we move forward in making it the most successful move forward for everybody in the community, inclusively with equity. So I hope to have your support in my path to the County Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Now we're going to have Harry Cohen introduce himself. Mr. Cohen, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Harry Cohen. I am a former two-term Tampa City Council member. I've also spent about 15 years working for Pat Franks, the clerk of the circuit court here in Hillsborough County. I ran for mayor last year, and while I didn't win, I had a very, very interesting and I think successful campaign in which I learned a lot and turned around and became the co-chair of some of Mayor Castor's transition committees, dealing with affordable housing, workforce development, transportation, and building and construction services within the city. And all of that was in the framework of sustainability as a major goal for the city going forward. I think that we are in a very, very difficult time, both nationally and locally. We have really three crises at once: a public health crisis, an economic crisis, and a crisis in terms of racial and equitable justice in this country. And the three are converging together really tragically with a complete lack of leadership at the federal level. It is almost incomprehensible that we could have a president this ineffective and this unfit for office at a time when we need leadership so desperately. I'm going to try to offer it at a local level, and I hope to talk about that tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. We appreciate that. So we're going to go into the question portion of the forum. Again, you're going to have 90 seconds to answer the question. I will be asking them to both of you. And if you'd like to rebuttal after the person is done, you can have a 1-minute rebuttal. So the first question is going to be for you, Mr. Cohen. The first question is, evictions begin August 1st and will increase the pandemic. Will you stop the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office from processing evictions during this pandemic?
Well, it's very interesting that you asked that, because I've been involved in the process in my work as general counsel to the clerk's office. And it was actually my
There you go. Okay. Thank you, Sean. Good evening, everybody. My name's Rick Fernandez. I'm running for County Commission District 3. I was born in the district in Ybor, raised in Tampa Heights, just off Robles Park. I'm a lawyer. Started my career in the Navy Judge Advocate General's Corps in 1978 after graduating from Stetson. I came back to Tampa in 1984, and from that point to this, I've earned my living in the legal industry in various roles as a board-certified civil trial lawyer, as president of the Hillsborough County Bar Association, president of the Tampa Heights Civic Association, and I currently serve as vice chair of the MPO-CAC on appointment from Commissioner Miller, who is, ironically enough, the incumbent in this seat now. I came to the public arena in 2015 in opposition to the Tampa Bay Express project. That was the plan of the Department of Transportation to increase the footprint of the interstate corridor through the urban core. Secondary to that, they were going to be entombing large portions of my neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods. I knew I couldn't sit back and just let that happen, so I began my activist role at that point, and over the last 5 years have evolved into what is now the pillars of our campaign. The top line items are to enhance and protect neighborhoods, to deliver robust public transit and transit-oriented development to those neighborhoods, to connect them one to the others, and to weave District 3 back together, initially through development of these transit facilities and ultimately through delivery of a project now known as Boulevard Tampa, which is the conversion of Interstate 275 north of the downtown interchange to a grand boulevard multimodal transit corridor, which will reconnect the neighborhoods to the street grid and bring all of that real estate back into the community for transit-oriented development. There are many deliverables to that.
That's time.
And I won't have time to cover them. So thank you. We'll get into them in Q&A maybe. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Gwen Myers. Yeah, I think you got to unmute yourself there, Gwen.
Sean, while Gwen is unmuting herself, Nate, can you let them hear the bell that they're going to hear at 30 seconds?
Yeah, so when you have 30 seconds left, I will play this bell sound. Just to let y'all know.
Okay.
And that's the same sound that they're going to hear when they're done too, right?
I'll just let them know that that's time.
Okay. Ms. Gwen Myers, go ahead. Your time starts.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm candidate Gwen Myers, a Tampa native and retired from Hillsborough County government after working 25 years of service. I'm running for Hillsborough County Commission District 3 because I have a passion for helping people address the county's urgent issues: transportation, affordable housing, and health care. I'm the only candidate in this race who has qualified by petition. I will lead on matters that would help our citizens: transportation, expand and increase transit options like better bus services, rails on our CXX lines, dedicated bus rapid, and the ferry service. Affordable housing, I would like to add to the $10 million investment by the board to make sure everyone can find a decent housing here in Hillsborough County. Healthcare, to make sure that everyone have healthcare and that lead the way through the COVID-19. For our roads, to make sure that our roads are safe for everyone who uses them, and this includes drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Smart growth, we need to plan to make sure that we have smart growth, including roads, schools, fire station, and redevelopment. And jobs, cultivating new employment opportunities and small businesses in our neighborhood, and oppose TVX on any interstate expansion that displace anyone in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We will go ahead to Mr. Frank Reddick. Frank, if you'll unmute yourself so we can.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, I'm having problems with the screen. Somehow it's just not allowed me to come up. But I think you said I had 2 minutes. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
2 minutes. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just say this, that I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak to you this evening. In 2006, I was appointed as an interim to the Tampa City Council. In 2011, I was re-elected to a 4-year term. In 2015, I was re-elected unopposed. And I'm proud that I had the opportunity to serve on the Tampa City Council. And I want to thank all of those who supported me and wished me well. But I want to say tonight that being elected to for 2 terms, 2.5 terms, this is not a recycled politician. This is not a career politician. This is a person that the community recognized, that they have done things in the community that they felt comfortable with, to not oppose me on a 2015 re-election. And they supported me because they was proud of the accomplishments. I'm not a career politician. I'm not a recycled politician. I'm a person who believe in getting the job done for my constituents. And I have proven that over the 8.5 years that I served on Tampa City Council. And I will prove that if I'm able to be elected to the Hillsborough County Commission, because everyone knows, even my opponents know, I got the job done. And I got it done with a strong mayor form of government. And anyone who's a politician who's been in public office will know, on a strong mayor form of government is very, very difficult.
And that's time
done for your district. So I thank you, and I look forward to this opportunity tonight.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead to Mr. Thomas Scott. You're up for your opening statement.
Well, thank you and good evening to everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to address you this evening. Tampa and Hillsborough County is going through a major transformation right now in our community. And our community is in need of experienced leadership that can assure that the residents and citizens of District 3 are not left out nor left behind. We don't have time for on-the-job training. We need a person who's ready to hit the ground running. I am the person that is most ready and qualified to step into the job because I served 10 years on the county commission. I served 4 years at Tampa City Council. I served 3 terms as chairman of the Board of County Commission. I served 3 terms as chairman of the Tampa City Council. And so my experience bring with it a lot of the knowledge and the skill of the budgetary process for Hillsborough County, being able to work with other county commissioners and other leaders in the community. My record is strong. My record speaks for itself. My record has a long list of accomplishments. We will continue to focus on economic redevelopment, transportation, affordable housing, healthcare, and early Head Start or child care. These are some of the issues that are so very important for our community and for our neighborhood. And so I look forward to going back and working with the Board of County Commission and District 3 as we move forward in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last opening statement, Ms. Sky White.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank Organized Florida for putting together this Zoom forum. My name is Sky White, also candidate for Hillsborough County Commissioner, District 3. Many of you know me from 2018 when I ran for a countywide seat for County Commission. That was my attempt to gain a second seat for people of color. And I actually, one of my biggest supporters was Bishop Thomas Scott. So I thank him for supporting me in my 2018 run. Many of you know that I'm a nurse. I'm a full-time nurse. So I'm not a politician. I'm looking at this from a District 3 homeowner, from a lifelong Hillsborough County resident, and I'm witnessing the things within the district that need to be addressed. I got involved in local politics after the murder of Trayvon Martin. I started a nonprofit organization called Reborn Tampa, and we started with teaching our kids their basic civil rights. We actually have a civil rights class coming up this Saturday as well. And that was what opened my eyes to the disparities in the county, specifically in District 3, disparities with transportation, with housing. And I found that there's this myth that most African-American parents don't care about their kids' education. We found that to be untrue. It was the fact that those families were so impoverished that the only option that they had, the only thing they were able to focus on was surviving. I got involved in local politics. I advocated for affordable housing, advocated for inclusive transportation, and for a habitable environment, and found that we were hitting a brick wall with our local elected officials. That was when I decided to step up to the plate and run for office. Here I am at the encouragement of Bishop Thomas Scott, running in District 3, looking to continue to be your advocate and continue to be your fighter. I think it's time that we move away from electing politicians who's had the opportunity to make tangible changes in our community and failed us. I'm looking to be your fighter, and I hope that I can earn your support and answer any questions that you have and earn your vote as well.
Thank you, everyone, for those opening statements. Let's get to the first question. Here it is. In the wake of the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, a national movement is now calling for counties and cities to defund the police. At the same time, revenue shortfalls from COVID-19 will force the county commission to make difficult choices about what we can and cannot afford. Would you support diverting funds away from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and putting them into social services? We will start with Gwen Myers.
No, I will not divert funds from the Sheriff Department to put in social services. The county has done an excellent job in funding social services. I worked in the social services department my last 10 years, and that was one of the budgets that was never cut. The county always funded monies for our social services program. And I think with the Sheriff Department, they are doing a wonderful job in making sure that the requirements that are being met, that the citizens are asking them to do. I worked with Sheriff Cronister on a couple of programs this year. And so I would not defund the Sheriff Department.
All right, thank you. Mr. Frank Reddick, your response to the same question.
Thank you, Sean. I would not defund the Sheriff Department. What I would do is look at the priorities where we can reallocate funding to other areas of the county. Because with this unrest that took place in this country, in this city, in this state, people are crying out that they want to be heard. They want to be listened to. And no one is talking about what can we do to those young folks that are out there protesting. And that's the reason why I want to establish a youth advisory board to listen to their concerns, see what their problems are, see how we can establish a better relationship with law enforcement. But there's areas, people are losing their job because of this virus every day. People are losing their insurance. How are we going to pay for that? How are we going to make up for that? When the majority of the funds, like in the city, 65% of the budget went to the police and firefighters. We can reallocate some of those funds and put the police out their cars, the sheriff out their cars, and put them out there in the street. Because when I was growing up as a young kid, we had community policing. We don't have that today. And we need to go back to getting people out their cars and getting them walking neighborhood so we can reduce some of this dividing. So that's what I would do.
Mr. Thomas Scott, same question.
Well, first of all, I don't understand what they mean by defund. That has not been defined. That's number one. Number two, you need to understand that the sheriff is a constitutional officer elected by the people. The Board of County Commissioner has no control over the office of the sheriff. That's number two. Number three. Number three is that if we're talking about looking at working with the sheriff to reinvest some funds that whereby the sheriff does not have to deal with some of the domestic violence and the social issues. I think that's something that I'm willing to work with the sheriff on so that we can make sure that there are resources that may be reallocated or reinvested to help him minimize some of the issues that the police or the sheriff may face in his department. So from that standpoint, I think we have a good working relationship already with the sheriff. But you got to understand that the sheriff is a constitutional elected officer who also can appeal to the state at any point and bypass the Board of County Commission.
Thank you. Ms. Sky White, your response to the same question.
Wow. I did not expect to be the only person that supports defunding the police on this panel. Hopefully, I'm not. I do support defunding the police. Unfortunately, it sounds like my opponents do not understand what that means. Former Councilman Reddick mentioned reallocating funds. That's exactly what it means, is reallocating funds. Black and brown communities do not have enough social services. Black and brown communities do not have enough wraparound services, but we're continuing to fund an organization, a union, whatever you want to call it, that has caused brutality amongst Hillsborough County citizens. A perfect example to show that we do not have funding for wraparound services. When an individual is having a mental health crisis, the first thing that we do is call the police. Why? Because there's no other phone number to call. So if we're reallocating those services and putting it back into the community, we want to decrease the number of times anyone has to call the police. If it's not for a violent crime, then we do not need to be making that phone call. But I do support defunding the police and reallocating those funds.
And lastly, same question, Mr. Rick Fernandez.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, the defunding term is certainly a loaded one and subject to a lot of different interpretation. I interpret it in much the same way Sky and Frank just suggested, the reallocation of funds, perhaps right sizing of funds, if you will. I do believe that we have put police in a position where we're asking them to do way more than they are trained to do or competent to do. And as a result, we have some very unfortunate results out on the street. We need to be putting more money into social services. We need to be directing social service and medical type services to nonviolent calls. And we certainly need to be addressing more training, I think, towards questions of implicit bias and the like, as we're bringing police officers into the force as a screening mechanism. So perhaps we can address some of these issues when direct confrontations are taking place on the street to address more effectively the issue of de-escalation. So not defund, but reassess and reallocate funding, right sizing, and understanding that we've asked too much of the police and there's been a negative impact on the communities.
Thank you. Next question. And this question, we're going to start with Frank Reddick. As many Hillsborough residents see stagnant incomes and unemployment, rents continue to rise and low-income housing is being sold off to high-end developers. What specific policies would you implement to provide affordable housing for low-income renters? Mr. Reddick.
Well, thank you for the question, because what I recognize is that the developers are supporting one of my opponents tremendously. But what we need to do is make sure that if we're going to develop new homes, we have to provide some incentive to the developer that you must produce low-income affordable homes for residents of this district. Because no one gonna want to move to Tampa and see that a community is not viable. And when we having so many residents have been displaced from the housing authority, that are moving out into unincorporated areas in the county, we got to find a way to assist them with rental assistance, with rent income where they can afford a home. And one of the things I'm proud of, and I'm just waiting on a report, and I don't know why we ain't got a report yet, is that the counties have set aside $10 million to help with affordable housing, but nobody's seen a report.
And that's time.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick. We're going to go on to Thomas Scott. Same question.
Yeah, well, in 2006, and I keep saying this over, in 2006, a whole study was done. 2005, 2006, a whole study was done. I chaired the Affordable Housing Task Force. Now it is the Affordable Housing Committee. Rewrote the ordinances, set in place the plan and the motion to address the issue of affordable housing. Okay, and with that, we put in place the revenue source, which still sets, as I know, in a fund that's about $1.5 million that's set in there from the interest of the impact fee. Secondly, that we set it up where a commissioner would serve on there as the chair so that they can make sure that they go back to the board and get additional funding to put into the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, which the Board of County Commission just did a few weeks ago by putting $10 million into that, which still is a small drop in the bucket. But you have already, that's been established from 2006, the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and also all the information needed to make sure that that program works and continue to move forward and thrive. That's in place right now. You just need the Board of County Commission to do what they need to do in terms of putting funds into the program.
Thank you. We will move to Sky White. Same question.
Well, it is unfortunate that one of my opponents has received almost $20,000 from developers. So I highly doubt that we'll get a robust affordable housing plan from them. One of the things we need to do is build healthy relationship with our state legislators, as well as affordable housing developers. Our affordable housing developers have many, many hoops that they need to jump through in order to receive federal funds to build affordable housing. I do agree that we should incentivize affordable housing, but we also need to make sure that we're thinking of our working middle class as well. Now, the price of a home and the price to rent has affected the working middle class, where they're living paycheck to paycheck. We're talking about people who are earning from $60,000 to $80,000 a year who are living paycheck to paycheck because they're spending almost $1,800 on a one-bedroom apartment. So step number one, build healthy relationship with state legislators so they're advocating for us in Tallahassee and working alongside affordable housing and nonprofit developers so that they can so that we can incentivize more affordable housing projects for our working middle class as well.
Sean, does she realize that? Does you realize that the
I love you
who have taken money from the trust fund?
I love you, Mr. Reddick, but we're gonna have to let you work that in on your closing.
All right. I just want to make that known.
I appreciate it, Mr. Fernandez. You're up. Same question.
Sean, could I exercise a point of privilege and ask you to repeat the question, please?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
been a little while. Thank you.
As many Hillsborough residents see stagnant incomes and unemployment, rents continue to rise, and low-income housing is being sold off to high-end developers. What specific policies would you implement to provide affordable housing for low-income renters?
Okay. Well, there's been a passing reference to it already, and that's the HOPE Affordable Housing Ordinance that was the ordinance recently funded at $10 million. I particularly like what happened there because whether the county commission intended to do it or not, maybe they just sort of backed into it accidentally. What they did was actually establish a model for transit-oriented development because they're incentivizing developers to build properties that are mixed use, not just residential and business, but also mixed income levels along transit corridors near work centers. That is the definition of transit-oriented development. What we need to do is to get those transit facilities into the neighborhood and allow that TOD to develop there to enhance and enrich the neighborhoods, enrich the businesses and the like. And also, please note, if you can create a car optional environment through robust transit and people can downsize their car ownership from 1 to 2 or 2 to none, whatever it is, they may save as much as $5,000 to $10,000 a year. That goes back to disposable income and becomes a big factor in what affordable means in affordable housing, not to mention other issues that they have to face in their economically challenged lives. So there are a lot of facilities available out there. We just have to deliver them to the residents that deserve them.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. And lastly, Ms. Myers, same question.
One of the things that the board has just approved in this year was the Hope Affordable Housing. The county just awarded contracts to, I believe it was 8 developers to build affordable housing throughout the county. This is the first year that Hillsborough County receives monies from the Sadowski Act, which before the county was not receiving any of those funds. As I campaign through this area, many people are talking about they do not have the down payment assistance. With the 10 million set aside, the policy that I would like to see put in place is that we grow that investment by adding additional $10 million to that, so that more people would be able to afford a home, because that $10 million can go very quickly, and that those individuals that are looking to renovate their homes, they can have funds from the county as well. The county has an excellent program. I worked in the housing department for 15 years, and we made sure that individuals that qualify to become a first-time home buyer, we educate them to save money, and the county assisted them with the down payment assistance. That is still in place today. And so as a county, bring in more developers to help low-income people is a very good affordable housing program that is in place today.
Thank you. We are going to move into something that's a little different, and I'm going to ask you to bear with me. We've gotten asked to do this, so we're going to do it. I'm going to ask each of you to ask a question of one of your opponents, and your opponent will have 90 seconds to respond. I would ask that your question obviously be respectful, but it also be a question and not a statement couched in a question. So I would ask that you ask a short, succinct question of one of your opponents. That opponent will then have 90 seconds to respond, and I hope that we can spread the questions around to different people. If not, we'll deal with that as we get there. But we'll start with Mr. Thomas Scott. You are free to ask one of your opponents a question, and we'll give them 90 seconds to respond.
The question would be, what is their plan for economic development?
Who is that directed to?
It doesn't mean anybody that want to answer.
I don't know if we could do that. Direct it to somebody. Get directed to somebody if you can, because that's how we're going to do this.
Rick Fernandez.
Okay.
Thank you, Reverend. I got you. I'm here. Well, if you review the pillars of our campaign, we speak about enhancing and protecting neighborhoods and delivering robust public transit. At the end of the day, the issues associated with those 2 pillars and the deliverables thereunder have to do with economic development. We're talking about access to affordable housing. We're talking about access to jobs, quality jobs that pay a living wage. We're talking about access to education and healthcare. In the delivery of transit-oriented development into neighborhoods, we're talking about empowering and enabling locally owned businesses, both established businesses and new starts. These businesses are historically the centerpiece of workforce development in a community. These are the businesses that are resilient and sustainable over time, not to mention that they also add pride to the neighborhoods. I think if we spend the time, money, and energy necessary to enhance our communities and our neighborhoods, if we give the people in these communities the tools they need, economic development will follow. We have to have good, honest, solid planning, and we have to have the investment necessary to incentivize the type of development that we need. But given those tools, the community will come together and they will prosper. We have to give them the tools.
Thank you. Ms. Sky White, your opportunity to ask one of your opponents a question.
I would ask my opponent, my question would be, I would ask Bishop Thomas Scott, why did he feel the need to not show up at our first community forum?
Mr. Scott.
Thank you very much. First of all, we was under the order to stay in, as you recalled, and that forum, as I recall, called for you to come out. That's number one. And number two, there was a note, that was a letter the week, and then 2 days, a few days later, then you had the forum, which I had a conflict in the schedule.
Thank you. Mr. Rick Fernandez, you have an opportunity to ask one of your opponents a question.
All right, Sean, thank you. The question has to do with Tampa Bay Express, and in particular with the definition that my erstwhile opponents have regarding what it means to actually expand the interstate through the urban core. I'll direct this question to either Reverend Scott or Gwen Myers. They can choose which one that.
I'm going to ask you to choose.
Okay, then I'll go with Reverend Scott. Reverend Scott, you've made the comment that you would oppose the expansion of the right-of-way, but apparently, if I understood your answer in one of the previous forums, you'd be fine if what we were talking about was the addition of capacity, meaning adding lanes within the existing highway would be fine with you, but extending the right-of-way would not. I would just like you to clarify as to what it is you mean by expansion of the interstate through the urban core.
My statement was and still is, one, please understand, I am opposed to any development or interstate that encroaches into any community, no matter where it is. That's number one. Number two is, it is my understanding that there will be no footprint change on 275. Okay, in other words, that they can come in and they can improve 275, but there'll be no footprint change, encroaching, no change in the right of way, and no encroachment into the neighborhood. That is what's been stated, and I've been informed.
Thank you. Mrs. Gwen Myers, your opportunity to ask one of your opponents a question.
And my question is, how would you support smart growth with an increase in impact fees? And I would direct that question to Sky White.
How would I support smart growth with an increase in impact fees?
Yes.
Well, supporting smart growth is, I'm a big supporter of actually urban infill. I'm a big supporter of urban infill, and starting with utilizing our impact fees is making sure that we're supporting urban infill in the communities not too far from where I live. It's a perfect example of urban infill. I've used this example before, the Winthrop community. So I would take those impact fees to not only support urban infill, but I would also make sure that our first responders have the equipment and facilities that they need to be able to reach our residents in a timely manner. And then I would also see how we can best utilize that to make sure that our schools are not left out as well. Schools and transportation.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. Frank Reddick, your opportunity to ask one of your opponents a question.
Thank you. I'm going to direct my question to Scott. Mr. Scott, in 2006, when I was appointed the interim city council member, you approached me after that and said you had no intention of running against me. We both served on the Sports Authority board. And for 2019, for the whole year that we was on that board, you walked me after those meetings to the parking lot. And you said to me that you would not run against me for the county commission seat. We was at the hockey arena before Tony Manish and Vince, and you said in front of people, when they asked you the question, are you going to run or Frank going to run? And you said Frank going to run, and I'm going to support Frank. Now, you go file papers to run for this seat. Where's your credibility? Do you believe in lying to people and expect people to be supportive of you when you have run 3 races in a row and you lost all 3 of them? And as a pastor, not to get in a runoff for mayor, being the only black in there, and a
all right, I got to step in, Mr. Reddick. We heard the question. I'm gonna give Mr. Scott a chance to go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure what the question is because he went on so long. First of all, I don't have any recollection of all that what he was talking about. That's number one. Number two is this. This is America. This is America, and a person can run for whatever office they choose as long as they qualify and meet the qualification. It doesn't matter.
Do you have to lie about
one
it?
of the things, I have to finish here, Mr. Moderator.
I know. I was gonna stop. Go ahead.
One of the things that we have to understand that we are not entitled to a seat. Nobody is entitled to a seat. If a person qualifies and meet requirement and get the name on the ballot, they can run. My character and my integrity speak for itself. The 40 years I served as pastor in this community and on Tampa City Council and on Hillsborough County. My reputation, my character speak for itself. And I think the people
I'm just gonna
and
say
the voters
this,
have a right and the voters
let him right. You got to let him finish, Mr. Reddick. Go ahead.
So thank you very much for that.
Let's move on to the next question. This is transit related. Urban highways like Tampa's I-275 are famous for destroying Black wealth and displacing Black communities. Yet the Florida Department of Transportation is looking to expand I-275 with its Tampa Bay Next project. What is your position on Tampa Bay Next? Do you support highway expansions in the urban core? We will start with Sky White.
I currently sit on the MPO-CAC board with Rick Fernandez, and I do not support TB Next or the expansion of urban highways. And I've said this before as well. When have you ever witnessed a highway being built or expanded in a suburban community? You don't. It just doesn't happen. It's always built through marginalized communities, which brings noise pollution, air pollution, which brings a wealth of health issues, as well as separates the community. So no, I'm not a supporter of expanding the highways. I'm not a supporter of TB Next. And I think that we need to find other ways to get from point A to point B without having to expand those highways and destroy an already divided community.
Thank you. Mr. Rick Fernandez.
Thanks, Sean. Well, whoever asked that question, thank you. I've been fighting the TBX plan, the project, since 2015 when it originally rolled out. A lot of reasons for that, not the least of which is that I saw the interstate come through when I was a child and take out the eastern border of Robles Park, which is the park I used to play in as a kid. I knew then, even as a child, that that was a raw deal. And in 2015, when FDOT came up with their plan to do it to us again, I knew that I was going to have to do something to stop it. Unfortunately, 275 and I-4 are a pollution factory, and they do not and will not ever solve our congestion problem. Adding lanes, contrary to what Reverend Scott said earlier, does not solve the problem because you cannot build yourself out of congestion. Our answer, and the only answer, is to take cars off the road. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to get the robust public transit in place so that people do have modality choices, and we can begin moving away from this car-centric mentality that we have been in basically for my entire life. I'm 65 years old. I saw the interstate up. The infrastructure is still there. And if we don't do something soon, that will be there in perpetuity, and my great-grandchildren are going to be having this discussion. Meanwhile, we're going to be breathing polluted air and drinking polluted water, compliments of the Department of Transportation. Leaders have to put a stake in the ground once and for all and say enough. That's got to come from the Board of County Commissioners, from the MPO, from the City Council, and from a strong mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gwen Myers, same question.
I will oppose any interstate expansion that displaces people in our neighborhoods. I've attended several public hearings with FDOT opposing TBX projects, and I would do that the same as an elected county commissioner.
Thank you. Frank Reddick, same question. Mr. Reddick, you're on mute, but you're up.
All right, I'm there.
There you go.
All right, boy, you guys make sure y'all shut everybody off.
It ain't me, brother. It ain't. I'm just the moderator.
I grew up in West Tampa, and they brought through an interstate where Black folks had to lose their homes. My grandmother was one of those who lost her home. Presbyterian, they shut down because they were proposing expanding the interstate. And Rick know more about this because he came before city council and he talked about it a lot. And I was strongly against a DOT doing what they wanted to do. So I oppose this. And I think what is done, because nobody don't remember, Flobresca Avenue, they want to close that interstate exit. They closed 40th Street, and they want to close Flobresca Avenue, where you can get off on that exit. And we fought against it. So I opposed it because DOT is outdated.
Thomas Scott, same question.
Yeah, I think I stated earlier I'm opposed to anything that would destroy a neighborhood or a community. Historically, the federal highway system has gone through primarily minorities, African American neighborhood primarily, and destroyed them. And as a result of that, most of it, we saw Black businesses go under, we saw neighborhoods disrupted, and all of that. So as a person of color, I'm familiar with all of the devastation and destruction that come as a result of trying to of highways destroying neighborhoods. So I think anytime you talk about destroying a neighborhood, disrupting people, I think we have to oppose that.
Thank you. We are getting to near the end of our forum, but I'm going to ask one last question before I give you all an opportunity to your closings. And that question shouldn't be a surprise given what's going on in this country. Do Black Lives Matter? What does that mean to you? We're going to start with Mr. Fernandez.
Thanks, Sean. I've been going through a significant education over the last few months. I've had the privilege of actually being part of some of the Black Lives Matter marches as a legal observer. I've heard a lot of things from the podium and a lot of things from people marching. I accept absolutely that I have been living steeped in a world of racism my entire life. And you know, sooner or later, you just got to say, this has to stop. And what is it that I can do to stop it? Yes, Black Lives Matter. Yes, people are being killed. Yes, there is brutality taking place on the street. And yes, we all have to stand up against it. I'm mortified by what I've seen, as I'm sure many have. And the thing that probably mortifies me the most is if some of what we've seen hadn't happened in the middle of a pandemic where people had nothing else to do but watch TV, it might have passed without notice as well. It's not like it was the first time that someone was killed. So I'm heartfelt. I'm very hurt by what I've seen, and to the extent that I've had any part in it at all, ever, at any time of my life, I'm so very sorry. We have to do things to rectify, and I'm prepared to do whatever it is I can do individually to do that, and as a member of the county commission to support anything we can do to rectify.
Thank you. Thank you. Gwen Myers, same question.
Yes, Black Lives Matters. What we are facing now is we witness all the police brutality. It has opened up other people's eyes that are not of color. But we have to take it a step further to say, in corporate America, we must make changes where Blacks can sit on boards. If we look around, we always just have one. We need more than one. We need 3 or 4 to be on these corporate boards. We need, just as I witnessed this morning, another brutality. Young lady handcuffed in the police department and they put the dog on her. When is it going to stop? When is it they're going to realize that our lives matter today and that we should make sure, and as an elected official, we've gone through enough training. Les Miller had some training out at Dardell about 4 years ago. We need to pull all those training off the archive shelves and do action, more solution problems, because that's where we are today in Hillsborough County. There's not enough action being done by the county or the city.
Thank you, Frank Reddick. Thank you, Frank Reddick. Same question.
Oh, thank you for the question. You know, Black Lives Matter. I'm so proud of the young folks who came forward and protest throughout this country because they brought issues before law enforcement and government officials that we got to make some changes. I can recall in the city of Tampa where people were getting arrested on by biking while black. And I was able to establish a citizen review board. But none of my opponents were sitting on the screen tonight supported me or came out and helped me get that thing passed. I had to fight like hell to get that done because the mayor of this city was totally against it. I marched in 3 different marches in support of Black Lives Matter. And Sean, I participated one with the fraternity. But the thing is, they did what a lot of people have not done. They have spoken, they have been voiceful, they have been forceful, and I can tell you, you seeing around the city, around this country, changes are being made in the police department. But until we get rid of number 45, and I would encourage them young folks
That's
to
time.
vote because we got to get rid of 45 in order to see this country move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas Scott, same question.
Racial injustice continue to be an issue, and until you address the issue of racial injustice and equity, you're going to continue to have the issue that we're confronted with and deal with today. We have to address the issue of racial injustice and inequity in our community and in this nation. I was the chairman of the Board of County Commission, 2003, driving a Lexus, pulled over by the sheriff because I was out in Carrollwood in a white neighborhood. I was made to get out of my car. I was made to take a sobriety test, walk a line, and everything else. And when I finished, I said to him, I had to show him my card. And I had something done the next day with the sheriff. At that time, it was Carol Henderson. My point to us is as a person of color, you are subject, even as a county commission chairman, to be pulled over. And so as a result of that, we need to understand that we have to address the issue of racial injustice and inequity in our community. Black Lives Matter. This issue has been going on long enough. And I want to thank those who are protesting and marching, along with the clergy who have taken a part in it as well, and to bring attention to this injustice in our community.
Thank you. Ms. Sky White, same question.
Yes, I have been very outspoken about racial injustices and openly saying that Black Lives Matter. I'm glad that finally my opponents are saying it, but the question is, did it matter before you ran for office? We know the racial disparities that we have here in Hillsborough County. And if you are truly for Black lives, if you are truly for a diverse and equitable local government, then why do we have only one Board of County Commission seat? Why do we have only one school board seat? Why do we have only one city council seat? Why is it that we're not able to elect an African American or person of color to a county-wide or citywide seat? I mean, here we are running for a seat that a group of young Black attorneys had to take the Hillsborough County to the Supreme Court in order for a Black person to sit on the Board of County Commission. And we have a non-Black person who's running for this seat, but also claims to be for Black lives. So you can't stand on both ends of the totem pole. Either you're for the Black community and you're for diversity and equity, or you're not. So if we are for Black lives, I want to continue to see our elected officials, our community, to not just say it and march it, but we need policy changes that show it.
Thank you. That was a spirited debate. We are at the end. We are now going to offer each candidate their opportunity to close. You have a minute to close, and the first person to go for their closing will be Gwen Myers.
Okay, I'd like to close by saying that the citizens of District 3 need a commissioner who will be accountable, address neighborhood and community issues, and give District 3 the opportunity to prosper like other districts of the county with good paying jobs, affordable housing, and a safe and walkable community. It's about the people. Please visit my website at votegwenmyers.com. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reddick, your closing.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity this evening to speak to the group. And I think tonight I have proven that I'm the person that is best qualified to represent the Board of County Commission for District 3. My proven leadership of getting things done, my position have always been about my constituents. It's not about my personal gain or trying to do different things to impress other people. You know, I listened to Mr. Scott, and he was talking about he was driving a Lexus, but I have a problem when I saw the other day that Mr. Scott wants to represent the poorest district in Hillsborough County, but he's driving $100,000 car, a Tesla.
And that's time.
That's it?
That's time. It goes by quick.
All right.
Thank you. Tom Scott.
Yeah, let me just say I represent this district from 1996, 2006. I drove a Lexus then, and my Lexus died the other day with 300,000 miles on it, so I had to get a new car. I didn't steal the money. I didn't steal the car, and I paid for it with my own money, and I represent the district then, and I look forward to going back representing it now. The issue is not what you drive. The issue is, do you have the passion and the heart for the people in your district that you care about? And I think my records show for itself how I fought for the people in Palm River, Claramel, Progress Village, up in Suitcase City, on and on and on. That's what people have to look at, is my record, my heart, my passion, and what I have given to District 3 in the past, and bringing it alive and making sure that their needs were met. And I look forward to going back and doing that again and representing the people in District 3. You deserve someone who can accomplish something, get something done. And so I look forward to that. And thank you. Please give me your vote August the 3rd through the 18th. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Ms. Sky White.
Yes. I just want to say that I'm extremely passionate about advocating for our community. It is time that we move forward with change. That means new leadership, new perspective, new ideas. Continuing to elect someone who's had 10 years or more to show change in this community would not be the right choice. This community, specifically District 3, East Tampa, has looked the same my entire life. I'm 36 years old. I want to see tangible, quantifiable change, not change that just looks good on paper. When I see other areas in the community thriving, Riverview, Brandon, Seminole Heights, skipping a hop away, but East Tampa is still struggling, then that's a fault on leadership. I'm looking to be a strong leader, make sure that all of our county residents are thriving, and to make sure that East Tampa is not forgotten. I hope to earn your support and your vote. You can go on my website at skyuwhite.com to learn more about me. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you, Sean. And thanks to all of you for making this opportunity available to us. District 3 is the most urban, diverse, and dense in the county. And in that, there should be a great deal of power, leverage, if you will, if we operate in common cause. But we have not been operating in common cause. We operate in silos, sometimes at cross purposes in a zero-sum environment. And as long as we keep doing that, we're going to keep on getting exactly what we've been getting, which is less than we deserve. It is my effort, my desire to stitch this community back together again through transit, through politics, and also even through taking down the Great Wall of Tampa that has been dividing us east-west for generations. If you'll vote for me, if you put me on the county commission, that is what I'll be fighting for. That is the vision that I embrace. Rick Fernandez, County Commission District 3, www.rickfor3.com, right back there. And thank you so much. I ask for your vote. I ask for your trust.
Thank you, candidates for District 3. I'm going to turn it over to Robin Lockett now to close the thing out, but I appreciate that. And we got a lot of good information. Hope the voters were paying attention. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Sean, for hosting this, and thank you, community, for coming out. Organized Florida members, appreciate your participation in this. I would also, hey, if you have your ballot, make your decision. Don't wait to put it in the mail and mail it. I noticed now everyone did not change their name. I do want to recognize Rep. Diane Hart that's on, and also board member Tamara Schamberger. Can you unmute?
Hi, thank you very much. It was my pleasure. What a spirited debate. And it was spirited. Yes, it was. And I think everybody enjoyed it. There's a lot of good information that got out. So that's great. Thank you all for doing this, Robin. It's really important to the community.
Member Schamberger? Is she on? I thought she was on. Well, this is a great opportunity to not listen at individuals, but listen to them. Get out of the norm of choosing for friends and so forth. You want to put people in office that speak to your issues and really can make change in regards to what's going on in the community. I want to thank everyone for participating. Ronja with CARE, Pamela with Flick, Nancy with Faith in Florida, Tina with Project Link, Craig with Dream Defenders, Evan with, I cannot pronounce your organization's name, but Navizin, Nate Sweet with the Florida Student Network, and of course, Organized Florida. So go out and vote. Thank you guys for participating and have a great night.